Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our webinar on visas and applying to the UK for your visa, your ATAS, and settling in to the UK, and especially finding your accommodation so you've got somewhere to live when you get there. So first of all, I want to say thank you very much to MABECS for holding the hands of our students as they navigate this tortuous process, having had two children that have gone through it. I would say, possibly apart from the actual A-level exams themselves, it's the worst part of applying to university. So thank you very much to Davina and her team at MABECS for helping our KTJ students navigate this. So MABECS Senior Consultant is going to be with us tonight, and that's Chan Kar-ho. So he's going to be talking about your visa and your ATAS certificate. And one of the reasons why we're doing this a little bit later than usual is because the government, because of COVID, maybe because of Brexit, we'll find out, have been changing the rules. So we really wanted to leave this when we were able to give you the most up-to-date situation and rules, but you really need to kind of listen and start preparing for this now. Then we'll hear from Tom Bryce, who is the Partnership Director at Callista, and they are accommodation consultants. And then we're going to hear from Choi Jae-ye, who is our ex-KTJ student, and he's going to be telling us how he transitions to university, and he's going to be sharing some of his wisdom and experience with you guys. So as we go through the presentations, you'll be able to type in comments in the chat box, so they'll come through to us and we'll be able to see those. So just type them when you think of the questions as we go along with the presentation, but we're going to handle all the questions at the end because it may be that somebody else has kind of touched on that and already answered it for you. But we're going to leave lots of time for questions. So let's begin. So first up, we're going to hear from Chan Kar-ho, and he's going to tell you about applying for your UK visa. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Emma. All right, prepared some slides that talk a lot about the preparation for your visa applications. So there will be some slides with information about what documents to prepare. So if you have any questions, perhaps you can let us know in the chat box, and then we will come to your questions at the end of these presentations. First of all, very important, you need to get the source of information right. We have gathered the websites of the government's UK visas and immigrations, which has all the most updated information about your student visa, requirements of documents. And at the top is the website of VFS Global. This is the website of the Visa Application Center in Kuala Lumpur. The website will list down some of the optional services that you can go for your visa application. Very important.
Sorry. Apparently people can't hear the audio. Oh, yes, now you can. Okay, so now they can hear the audio. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, all right. Now, the very first requirement is the financial requirements. You need to make sure that you have sufficient amount of money for your tuition fees and living expenses before you start your visa application. Wherever you study in the UK, whether it is in London or outside of London, you have to have the first year's tuition fees. And for living expenses, it depends on the location of your university. As you can see on the slide, if you will study in London, you need to prepare £12,006 for living costs. If you are going to study elsewhere outside London, you need to prepare less, which is £9,207 as your living expenses. And this amount of money has to be maintained in the relevant accounts for consecutive 28 days prior to your visa application. Now, this is a very important requirement because the UK VI is quite strict with these financial requirements. How do you show the evidence of funds? First of all, you need to make sure that the money is in a cash form in either savings, current or fixed deposit accounts. And when the money has been maintained for consecutive 28 days, you can request the bank to give you a letter about this evidence of funds. And even for fixed deposits accounts, although you have the certificate, you should still prepare the bank letter. As you know, a proper document, an official document, should be printed on the letterhead with all the necessary details, such as the names, account number of your parents or yourself, and very important is the date of the letter. You should not obtain this letter too early, because the moment you have this letter, you will only have 31 days to lodge your visa application. Beyond that, this letter will not be valid anymore. And the UKVI is very strict about this, so you should not obtain this letter too early. Perhaps a few days or after your A-level results is being released, and you can get the letter, because you will have a month to start from the second week of August to second week of September to do your visa application. Very important, as I mentioned earlier, a proper document should be printed on the official letterhead of the financial institution, with the amount of money being clearly stated in the bank letter. And it will be your responsibility to make sure that the amount of money is sufficient to cover your first year tuition fees and the necessary cost of living. Now, what if the account belongs to your parents? Of course, you should still get the bank letter. And in addition to that, you need to obtain a financial consent letter written by your parents, allowing you to use that money for your tuition fees and living expenses. And you need to prepare an official birth certificate in dual language to prove the relationship to your parents. Now, what if you are a student with a government scholarship? You don't have to prepare the financial letter by yourself, because you can request the sponsor to give you a sponsorship letter detailing the basic details, such as your names, the contact details of your financial sponsor, very important, the date of the letter, and for how long this sponsorship will last for. Maybe it's 1 year, 2 years, or the entire duration of your degrees in the UK. Again, the letter should state the amount of money that your sponsor will be giving to you. And sometimes, if it is a full scholarship covering fees and expenses, they can just state they will pay all the fees and expenses. And what if your government sponsorship is partial? In that case, in addition to this sponsor letter, you need to prepare your own bank letter to prove that you have the remaining fees or expenses. And all these documents should be signed by the person who issued it on and printed on the official letterhead. As you can see on the slide, the website is where you will start your online visa application. Now, before you start your application, please bear in mind that there will be 2 payments to make during the course of your application. One of it is the immigration health surcharge of £470 per year, pay in full in advance, and during the time of your visa application for your entire duration of your studies in the UK. And the second payment is your visa application fees, which I will tell you how much it is later. What documents that you will need to upload here? As you can see, the TB certificate and the other relevant supporting documents, such as the ATA certificate and a consent letter by your parents if you are under 18 years old for this visa application, study, travel, and live independently in the UK. If you are over 18 years old, of course, you don't need this letter. And for some nationalities that are eligible for differentiation arrangement, you do not need to upload the financial and educational documents, but you still need to have them because they can be requested by UKVI when they process your visa application. Now, once you have paid the visa application fees, submitted the online application, that's when you can book an that's when you can book an appointment, a date and a time suitable to yourself to go to the visa appointment center to submit your passports and biometric information. Now, before you go, please make sure that you print out your document checklist and the appointment confirmation to the appointment. Without that, they will not admit you to the visa appointment center. Now, just now we talked about the ATAS certificate. Now, this is a mandatory document for the visa application if you are going to study some courses at master's level, for example, Master of Engineering in Chemical Engineering, MEng in Mechanical Engineering, or Aerospace, Aeronautical Engineering, Nuclear Sciences, Physics. So you need to have this document before you apply for your visa. The reason for that is, without this, UKVI will just reject your application. Now, how do you know that you will need this document? If you are going to study chemical engineering, for example, at master's level, you will need to have it, because with the CAH3 code, you can always check at the website to see if you need an ATAS certificate. Now, please apply early, because the processing time can take up to 2 months. Although some students get it quite fast in 20 days, but it is better to apply early because some cases will drag for 2 months. The moment you have selected your firm and insurance universities, that's when you should request both universities for the CAH3 code and further details of your course modules information for your ATAS application. Now, what they need here is the information about the subjects that you will study in your degree for the 4 years or 5 years in the UK. So if you are not sure, you can always check with your firm and insurance universities that whether you will need an ATAS. And if you do, please request them to give you the CAH3 code and the module information of your degree so that you can start your ATAS application as soon as you can. As I mentioned, do not wait. The reason for that is the processing time can be quite lengthy. So the moment you have firmed up your firm and insurance, you have the necessary information, including your valid passport that you will use to travel in September, you can straight away and apply for it. Please do not wait until you have your A-level results, because that will be too late, because that's already mid-August and you wouldn't have time to get this in time and for your visa application. Now, the other supporting documents for your visa application, as we discussed earlier, the financial documents, the bank letter or your sponsorship letter, your birth certificate, if you are using your parents' account, and a consent letter by them for using the money, and your original education documents. This will always be mentioned in the CAS, and any qualifications that you have already gained leading up to your A-level now, an ATAS certificate, get a printout, because that will be sent by email to you. And if you are underage, under 18, you need to get the parental consent letter giving you consent for your visa application, travel, study, and living independently in the UK. And definitely, you must get an original birth certificate to prove the relationship of your parents. Now, earlier we talked about the TB certificate. Now, this is another mandatory document for all students, regardless what courses that you will do in the UK. Now, if you are a Malaysian passport holder, then you will use it for visa application, and you will come to study in the UK for more than 6 months, you need to obtain this certificate at an approved clinic in Malaysia, and to prove that you are free from TB before you apply for your visa. And this certificate has to be uploaded to your visa application. Without it, UKVI will reject your application. Now, where to go to get this TB screening? There are 5 clinics in Malaysia that you can go for this screening. Just tell them that you need a TB screening for your UK student visa. They will give you a form to fill up. And this is a website for non-Malaysian students to find out whether you are a national that will also require this TB certificate, and where to do at your home country with the approved clinics. Okay, these 5 are just in Malaysia. Now, what to bring to the TB certificate? What to bring to the TB screening? a valid passport that you will use to travel in September, a photocopy of your biodata page of the passport, a color passport size photo, and a UK address. Now, in this case, you can use your firm university's address. Now, don't worry, what if you would change to Insurance University or another university later? That is still all right, because the TB certificate will still be valid by the time you apply for visa in August. The UK VI will still accept it. You don't have to go back to the clinic to ask for a change of address on the TB certificate. Now, earlier we touched a bit about the differentiation arrangement. For some eligible nationals, such as Malaysians, the privilege they provide under this arrangement is that you do not need to provide your educational and financial documents during the visa application, during the appointment as well. You do not have to upload them. You do not have to submit it at the visa appointment center, but you need to have them with you as well, because when UKVI is processing your application, they can request for all these documents from you. Without that, they can just reject your application. Now, what can you expect when you are at the visa appointment center? For sure, they will need to collect your passport to process your visa application. And at the same time, they will take your fingerprints and a digital photograph for them to process a document later, which I will show you in the next slides. And for any reason, if you cannot provide fingerprints, don't worry, just get a doctor letter, and the staff at the visa appointment center will advise what to do with your fingers, okay? Now, after the appointment, you will be given a receipt. Now, keep it safe because you need it for your passport collection in the future. And I would advise you to check your email regularly, especially the junk and spam box. The reason for that is the UKVI may randomly select some applicants to do this credibility interview. Now, this interview will be sent to students by random, and it will be conducted by a home office member of staff to determine that you are the genuine student. And of course, they are testing your English level as well. So if you get this email, please confirm the date and time for this interview. And there will be just a lot of videos prepared by universities in terms of preparing you for this interview. The questions that they ask are just, for example, like the reasons you want to study in the UK, how do you finance your studies, and where do you live, that kind of questions. Now, earlier we talked about the biometric information. The reason they collected that is to produce these biometric residence permits, which you will collect in the UK. So this is how it looks like, yeah, if they don't change the design later, okay? Now, earlier we talked about the application fee. As of now, it is still stand at $505 US, but it may change a bit up and down during the application time in August. So it's strictly by online payments, by card payments. And once you have attended the appointment, your application will be processed in about 15 working days. Now, earlier we talked a bit about the immigration health surcharge. Now, when you are doing your application, when you come to this part of IHS payment, there will be a lot of questions to answer. Some of them, they will ask you about your course information, for example, the start date and end date of your course. Now, this is all available in your CAST. You can just refer to CAST and key in the correct answers. They will ask, for example, the location of your universities or that. So just answer correctly. The system will calculate how much you have to pay. And as you can see, it is £470 per year. You will pay in full for the entire duration of your study. If it is 3 years, then it's 470 by 3. Now, what is the £235? Because every student will be given extra months in their visa. So this will have to be covered by the IHS as well. So that is why the £235 will be accountable for. Now, earlier we mentioned that you probably will apply for visa in 3rd week or 4th week of August, and it can take about 15 working days to process. What if you want it to be faster? Now, here is the option. The first one, as you can see, the priority visa service. If you go for this, 1,240 ringgit, your visa application will be processed in 3 to 5 working days. And what if when you come to the appointment, the regular free appointments that will be available is probably 1 week or 1.5 weeks later? This is when you can consider these optional services because they have a different queue system. And with the fee, you can maybe get an earlier appointment for your visa application. All these are entirely optional, so you are not pressured to use any one of these if you don't want to. Now, coming to the second part, this is a bit about some tips about traveling to the UK. Now, before you travel, please make sure that you have all the necessary official educational documents, such as the transcripts, certificates, because the universities may still need to inspect them during the registration. So please make sure that you collect them. And don't worry if you, well, definitely you will not have your A-level certificates by August. That is not a problem because every university knows about that. So they will, and anyway, they have verified results online, so they will not insist of you producing the A-level certificates in August, which you have just done exams in May and June, okay? Now, very important, of course, is your passport with a valid visa, and only travel when your visa is valid. It is 1 month. And now you may ask why it is only 1 month. The reason for that is because the government wants you to travel within that 1 month and collect the BRP card in 10 working days once you arrive in the UK. All the other documents to prepare are, for example, your car statement. You can print it out. If you have a government scholarship or international company sponsorship, get the sponsor letter as well. Your TB certificate, your ATA certificates if it is applicable, and certificate of good conduct to some students that will be doing a course that will have contact to the public in the UK. And if you have any onward journey booking, you can prepare them in advance as well. Now here, this is what I mentioned just now. Once you arrive in a university, you have 10 days to collect your BRP card. And when you collect your passports with a visa, you will be given a visa decision letter as well. That letter will state very clearly where to collect your BRP card. It is always either the university or the nearest post office to your university. So please collect this BRP card within the 10 days because the government is quite strict about that. And once you have done that, you can join any freshers fairs or welcome events or academic induction programs that is available if you are still in time for it. Now, the next thing to do is remember you have paid for the IHS, so don't forget to register with the NHS near to your accommodation, or just ask your accommodation blocks, the nearest NHS clinic or hospital to do the registration. Because you have paid for the IHS, you have access to their services, but there are some that is excluded by the IHS, such as the optical and dental treatments, your prescription, and some very specialist GP services as well. Next thing to do is to open a bank account in the UK. Now remember, when you do your university registration to collect your student card, at the same time, don't forget to get a letter from your university to open a bank account. They will know what document to give you. It's just to prove that you are a student there. And with that, bring your passport, of course, your addresses, home address and UK address, and see if you will need an appointment to go to the bank, the branch, for opening this bank account. Some banks may need you to have fill up an online form before you go there, or some will just need you to get an appointment and go to the branch for this bank account opening. Now, some banks may still charge a minimum deposit to open an account, but a lot of them actually don't do that anymore. If the rules and regulations governing your student visa does not change, you will still be allowed to work up to 20 hours per week during your term time, and you can go full-time working during your holidays. Of course, this is just for your exposure and experience, because the kind of work that you will do probably are, for example, back office supports, in catering, in hospitality, in a restaurant. So it is purely just for exposure and experience. Now, that's all of my presentations. So this is the contact details of MABECS. So perhaps if you have any questions, you can put into the chat box. We will view your questions later. If not, you can contact MABECS in the future as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. I think we're moving on to me next. Emma, do you want to say anything in between?
No, I was just going to say lots of great questions. Okay, so over to Tom.
Okay. Okay, so I am from Casita. My name's Tom Bryce. I'll tell you a little bit about what Casita do and how we can help you on your journey and your next stage of your studies. So we come from the education world ourselves. I personally used to work for a number of universities in the United Kingdom, and about 4 or 5 years ago we decided that even though students were very well looked after when it came to making an application to go and study overseas, sometimes there was a bit of a gap when it came to actually helping them find accommodation. We realized that it's one of the most important things for a student when they're going overseas, and thought it was something that would need a little bit more attention. To do so, we've worked with a number of companies which we call PBSAs. So PBSA is called Purpose-Built Student Accommodation. The real difference is it's usually not on the university campus, tends to be within the city itself and within walking distance from the university. And these buildings would be hotel-style buildings with students with private rooms, close to the university, 24-hour security, flexible check-in dates, and all bills included in the price itself. So just to give you a bit of an example of what that actually looks like, I'll play this little video for you here. So this video is actually in Glasgow, West Village. It's key fob access to get into the building itself, standard. And then 24-hour reception area. Collect your parcels. This is a standard ensuite room. So double bed, study area, private bathroom, and then a shared communal space, usually shared between 4 or 5 students. And this is the studio room. The main difference being you still have all the same facilities, but a small kitchenette. And that means you can cook your own meals. Communal areas such as game rooms, study spaces, pool tables, and even cinema rooms. And then also things such as secure bicycle storage, laundromat facilities, all included within the price. So that is what a PBSA looks like. The Casita themselves, what we actually do is we don't actually own any buildings. We're like Airbnb, but for students. So what that means is rather than actually owning any of our rooms, we work with private companies who build these rooms and have over 1 million of these rooms all over the world. Just getting a little bit of feedback, sorry. Can we just make sure that the microphone is on mute, please? Okay. So this is what a standard ensuite room looks like. as you can see, you have your own bathroom here, a double bed with storage space underneath the bed itself. A standard studio room would be much larger with that kitchen area, so you can do your own cooking in your own room. The facilities within the buildings themselves are really hotel level, so they are like 5-star hotels for students, really. Usually an on-campus accommodation building tend to be a little bit smaller, usually sharing a bathroom, where we have large communal areas, free gym facilities, common spaces, coffee shops, and some even offer a free breakfast. These are some of the facilities inside some of our buildings. This is just a selection between Sheffield to Glasgow to Birmingham. And the rooms themselves include all bills, high-speed internet, on-site staff to help you with any issues you may have, to collect any parcels that arrive when you're at school, and to also help you fix anything that needs fixing. And that is all included in the price of the room. And if you would like a little bit more space, we also do have some 1-bedroom flats available, which is of course handy if you have people coming to stay with you. Usually the rooms will let people come and stay for maybe 2 or 3 nights at a time. Of course, that might be a little bit different now because of COVID, but as long as you let the building know, they can usually accommodate guests for you. So what we do, before I hand you over to Jayen, who can tell you what it's really like to deal with Casita, just tell you a little bit more about what it is my team will be doing here for you. So we're based in East Asia ourselves. I'm actually in Bangkok at the moment. And based on the information you provide us, we will create tailor-made offers for you within your budget and within walking distance to your university. We have dedicated customer service lines available in East Asia, so we can deal with any issues that you may have here. We also have staff in the United Kingdom, so we can help you before you travel and then once you've actually checked in. Even though we don't actually own any buildings, because we work with so many partners, there is no extra or additional or hidden fees for using Casita. The way we operate is by dealing with large numbers and large groups to certain providers for us. So there is never any additional cost for using Casita. We also work with universities and help them with their pre-departure functions, usually before students are traveling from all over the East Asia region. So if you would like to make an inquiry, it's very, very simple. You just visit casita.com/MABECS. There's 3 very simple questions for you. You answer those 3 questions, one of my team will be in touch to guide you through the next stage of your journey. Very, very simple though. It's a 3-step process. Find, shortlist, and book. On that note, I'm going to hand you over to one of our students who can tell you what it's really like to live in a Casita building. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Yep. Hi guys. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm just gonna pop my slides up. All right. Yep. So, yep. Hi everyone. I've been asked by Casita to talk about my experience in the UK and some tips about getting ready to come to the UK for your studies. So to start off, it will be most appropriate to introduce myself. My name is Jayen. I'm currently a Malaysian student in the UK right now. I'm from Johor Bahru and I did my A-levels in KTJ. I graduated in 2020. So currently a first year medical student in Cardiff University and hence living in Cardiff right now. Yep. So here are some topics that I'll go over today. Life in the UK, how to prepare, finding an accommodation, and settle in. But I won't go into too much details of this because of the time constraint. Feel free to put any questions, I'll try to answer it. So life in the UK. It's been a little over 6-7 months since I came to the UK, Cardiff to be more specific. So a brief overview of my life here. The flag on the left-hand side is a Wales flag. So basically UK is divided into 4 regions. So it's Wales, Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland. It's a bit like So they each have their own government. It's a bit like how Sabah and Sarawak have their own governments. So under each government, there are different rules. Things like if you're in the Wales, you don't need to pay for prescriptions, whereas if you're in England, you might need to pay for them. UK in general is wet. It rains a lot. It's not like heavy storms in Malaysia, but it just keeps on raining. Of course, it depends on which area you stay in. Some places rain more, some not so much. But in general, UK is pretty wet. Also, UK is cold. Obviously, depends on which area, but temperature can easily go as low as 0 degrees or sometimes sub-zero in winter. And during summer, it can go up to 15 degrees. So it's not too hot, still quite chilly, and you might need a jacket. So in my time here, due to COVID, most of my classes are online, but because I'm studying medicine, I have quite a lot of face-to-face classes, especially those where I need to go to the hospital. So here are some pictures from my time in the UK. So this is during spring, that's also during spring, and of course winter. Yep, so I'm fortunate enough to have a group of friends, all Malaysians doing the same course as me. So they are kind of like my support system there. I normally walk or cycle if I need to get around. That's a photo of me cycling when it just suddenly started snowing. And of course, me when it first snowed in Cardiff. Yep. So the picture on the left is the hospital that I go to for my classes. Definitely something that I always look forward to instead of just sitting in my room in front of computers. I've also gotten my first dose of the COVID vaccine around March, and I'll due to get my second dose in a couple of weeks. Because I need to go to the hospital regularly, so I was given priority to get the vaccine. But from what I know, for now, the UK government is pushing out the vaccines for university students. So by the time you come over around September, October, you will be given a vaccine as well. So enough of that. How to prepare to actually go over to the UK. So going to a place 10,000 kilometers away from your family is scary. But there's a few things that you can sort out beforehand so that the transition is just more smooth. First, learn to be more independent. Now, I don't mean independent as in doing your own laundry or cooking your own meals. Of course, those are important. But what I mean by being more independent is to be mentally prepared to be on yourself, to deal with situations by yourself, learn how to make good decisions, important decisions, how to live with other people, and just be away from your family, things like that. Then be ready to step out of your comfort zone and try new things. Coming over here is a new environment. It can be the best experience or maybe not. It depends on how you embrace it. And also not to forget the main reason you came here is to study. So keep studies in mind, but also try to have fun in a few years here. So other than that, these are the important things that you can plan ahead. Legal documents, as said by Kaho in the MABECS presentation, deal with your visa, your TB certificate, your passport. So a pro tip about your passport is try to renew your passport before going there so that you don't have to renew your passport while being in the UK itself, because that's quite troublesome. As mentioned by Kaho, your ATA certificate of good conduct if you're doing a healthcare course, vaccination history if you're doing a healthcare course as well. Moving on, banking. Some banks in the UK have some certain criteria, like you need to put in a certain amount of money. Some banks will only allow you to only open an account while you're actually physically in the UK, but some banks that offer a service where they can allow you to open the account while you're still in Malaysia. Keep a lookout on which banks have the most benefits. Some gives out real cards, some have freebies, some gives you like a free SIM card, things like that. Also, is the bank easily accessible? Do they have online services, or do you have to actually go to the bank every time if you want to sort out any things? And what are their customer service in general? Do they have good reviews from seniors maybe, or are they notorious for dealing with students, things like that? Some banks take quite long to sort out issues. Some are known to have quite fluid processing procedures for students. So it's something to keep in mind. And also, it's not mandatory, but it's always good to have a few accounts so that if one has some issues, you have another to keep as a backup. Finances, as mentioned by Kaho again, tuition fees, rental, daily use, bills, and just other stuff in general. It's good to keep track of your finances so that you don't spend too much or just to spend a comfortable amount. So for tech and clothes, basically what I meant is to bring the right stuff. You don't need to bring too many jackets, or you don't need to bring your whole gaming PC here. It'll take up too much too much space in your luggage. Is not really worth it. But what I would say is buy what you need in Malaysia, especially things like electronics, iPad, a new MacBook. If you need that, buy it in Malaysia because it's more expensive in the UK because they have a 20% tax. Food, my favorite topic. It's become my way of distressing while living here. Always great to learn how to cook in advance. It can be as simple as trying to learn how to stir fry for some veggies. Also learn how to buy groceries because you're gonna be the person buying groceries over here. Yeah, sometimes treat yourself, eat out. Maybe you can, if you're craving some Malaysian food or Japanese food, you can just go out and have a simple meal. Things can be quite expensive if you convert it back to Malaysian ringgit, but it's always good to have a balance of treating yourself and saving money. So I'll touch on accommodation on the next slide, and this will be the main point of my presentation today. So finding an accommodation, this is just some of my advice on what are the things to consider when you're looking for accommodation. So first, of course, the most important part, okay, maybe not the most important part, but something you definitely need to keep in mind is the location of it. Is it close to campus? Is it close to supermarkets? Is there any public transport nearby? Any shops, restaurants? Or is it too close to bars and pubs that it might be noisy at night? Basically anything that you can think of. Price, don't simply choose on the cheapest one because those might not be the best. Those might have some drawbacks. Of course, don't also choose for the most expensive ones because those might not suit you the best. It's just things that you need to balance out. Next is facilities. Some accommodations have their private gyms, some have study spaces. In my opinion, those are just add-ons. The real important stuff is how big or small is the kitchen? Do they have a laundry room? Do they have a laundry machine in your room? Do they have any elevators and these kind of things? Service, do they have a reception team on site? Any security guards overnight? Any way that you need to get, any way that you can get help after office hours? So after that, the community. So what I mean by this is whether your accommodation is located in somewhere like a student village. So sometimes if you're in a student village like the one I'm living right now, basically it's the whole accommodation and it's surrounded by different types of accommodation. Generally, a student area, things will be more cheaper, will be cheaper there. Restaurant will be more student friendly, things like that. So next to consider is whether you're in an Ensuite or a studio. Depends on your budget limit and things like that. So moving on is catered or non-catered. So from what I know, if you want to go for a catered option, it's very limited. But if that's something that you want, you can keep that in mind. And lastly, if possible, ask for comments and reviews from your seniors. So let's say if you're coming to Cardiff, it might be a good idea for you to ask me, okay, which area should I go? Is there any accommodation that I should stay away from? Things like that. They can give you a more realistic insight. Maybe they can tell you that that area is really noisy at night, or maybe, oh, that accommodation is really good in their service. They're very clean. Yep. So that's a lot of things to consider, but to make your life easier, you can just reach out to Casita. So what I did last year was, because it's a free service, I got in touch with Casita through MABECS. It really saved a lot of my time because there's a lot of things that you need to consider, and just looking through the whole list of accommodation available in a place, let's say in Cardiff, it's quite time consuming. But what I did was I just told all my criteria, like I want my budget range is between, let's say, a few hundred, and where do I want to live? Do I want to live near campus? Things like that. Pass all that information to Casita, and they help me to shortlist that down to a few options. Then I can just easily go through the few options and choose the one that I really like. So another good thing about getting help from Casita is, other than it's free, is because Casita is based in Southeast Asia. They have agents based in Malaysia as well. So they can allocate an agent in Malaysia to you, and thus you don't need to worry about the time zone difference between here and the UK. So like things like, if you want to get an answer about a query, you don't need to go or send an email and wait for 6-7 hours for the UK side to wake up and go into their office hours and reply you. The agent can reply you instead, things like that. And they know how to deal with things like names and addresses. For example, like if you want to apply for accommodation, they're going to ask for your permanent address in Malaysia. So if you're going to tell them things like Taman or Jalan, they won't understand what you're talking about. But if you have an agent from Malaysia, things can go quite smoothly. Yep, and I would say the most helpful stuff I get from Casita is allowing me to put an international guarantor. So what that means is, normally when you want to book an accommodation in the UK, you need to put someone as your guarantor. So at least they can go after someone if you don't pay your rent. But usually their company policies are the guarantor need to be a UK resident or has lived in the UK for a certain amount of time. So by booking through Casita, they allow me to get an international guarantor, which of course is very helpful, because if not, I won't be able to get the place that I'm living in right now. So that's about accommodation. That's a whole lot to think about, but it's still quite early, and I think after your A2, it's good to start thinking about it. Yep. So moving on to settle in, I know it's a bit early, but it might be worth to think about just how you're going to settle in when you arrive in the UK. So when you arrive, first, I would say the most important part is to register with a GP, and then call your family often. They do miss you. And most importantly, have fun. It's going to be like an adventure here, 3 years to 5 years. It might be the best time of your life, and just cherish your time while studying in the UK. Yep, so I would just like to end my presentation with a quote I really like by Mark Twain. I think this, hopefully it's still the same quote in Cafe DM. So travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. When you move to a new environment, you see a lot of new things from a different perspective. It's an eye-opener in general. So that ends my presentation. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions. I put my email down there, jane_choi@hotmail.com. You can get in contact if you have any questions. But yeah, that's all from me, and thank you for listening. Yeah.
Okay, great job. Thank you very much. Okay. Do you want to stop your screen share? There we go. Great. So everybody's back here. So what happened in the middle was my internet went and I left the webinar. And what happened now, I've discovered, is that I've lost all of the chat, all the questions that were posted about the visas. So Kaho, can you just check down on your right-hand panel where it says chat, the third one? Can you click there and you should be able to see them, right? Okay, then. Can you see them?
Yeah, I can see all the questions.
Okay, great. So yeah, all the questions are the ones I marked red with the red Q. Okay, do you want to tackle those kind of one by one? All the ones there are related to visas.
Okay, yeah, sure. All right, I have a question about the funds need to be in an account. Can it be parents or students' bank accounts? It can be either parents or students. It doesn't really matter. It just, if you are using your parents' account, you just have to get the additional documents, the parent consent letter for using the money, and the birth certificate to prove the relationship. Yeah, but you can use either. And can the funds be in a local currency? Yes, definitely. for sure, but just maybe you want to use a slightly higher exchange rate in case there will be a fluctuation of the exchange rate, because don't forget, you still need to have the money. To UKVI is in pounds, but you can show in local currency, but just make sure you have enough money in your account. Now here I have a question about whether a bank letter is still required if submitted together with the bank statement. Well, in this case, if you have a bank statement, because it will still have to be certified by the bank, you have to make a trip to the bank, and bank statement may not be easy to read. So to make the job of the UKVI more convenient, easier, maybe it's good to have a bank letter instead of a bank statement. But either one is fine. A bank letter or bank statement is fine. It's just, anyway, you still have to go to the bank to get a statement, to get stamped and certified. So you might as well get a bank letter. Make it easier to read, because I can straight away say how much of money is being maintained in the account for the last 28 consecutive days. So that's easier. And what is a TB certificate? It is a certificate to prove that you are free of TB, but it can only be issued by one of the approved clinics. Yeah, in Malaysia, there are 5 clinics. And is there any requirements for COVID-19 vaccination? As of now, it is not required, but anyway, it's only mid of May for now. So perhaps you may want to check later, but so far there is not any plan to make it compulsory that you must have some vaccines before you go. And anyway, UK government, like Jane said just now, they are providing vaccines to international students as well. And there is a question about...
Just jump back a little bit. Sorry, Carl, I was just going to say there was another question about TB. One was about how long it's valid for, so when should you do it? And the other one, somebody else is just asking now, there are only TB clinics in West Malaysia in KL. So if you live in another state, I mean, there was one in Penang, I think, right? So suppose you live in Kuala Terengganu or Pahang somewhere, what do you do then?
Yeah, TB certificate is valid for 6 months once it is issued. So you can do it anytime from now, because if you get it, say tomorrow, it will run valid for 6 months until November 18. So you can do it anytime from now at your convenience. And it can only be issued by 5 clinics in Malaysia. So there will be 2 in KL, Kuala Lumpur, 1 in Penang, 1 in Kuching, and 1 in Sabah. So if you stay in, say, like Emma said, in Terengganu, Kelantan, you will have to travel to Penang or Kuala Lumpur to get the TB screening. Unfortunately, there are only 5 clinics in Malaysia, and you have to make a trip there to get the TB screening and the certificate. Yeah. So, yeah, you can get it anytime now, not necessarily to wait until early July. But I understand that you have exams, so maybe you can do it right after your exams. Yeah, because if you are free of TB, after the chest X-ray, the doctor will give you the certificate right away. And here I have a couple of questions about the BRP collection and quarantine. Yes, as of now, Malaysian students, you will have to do quarantine in UK for 10 days. So that makes it impossible to collect your BRP card. So there is some flexibility. Anyway, you are under quarantine, so you do not have to get the BRP card in that 10 days. You can get it later once you are out of the quarantine. So don't worry about that, because the UK government is knowing about that, and they are making this flexibility to affected students.
Kyle, if you don't mind me jumping in, I just have
please, Jane.
Something to add on about collecting the BRP. So by the time when I came over here, I was required to quarantine. Sorry, I wasn't required to quarantine for 10 days. I understand that the situation right now is if you come over to the UK, you need to quarantine 10 days. So yes, by right, you need to collect your BRP within 10 days. But because if you're in the if you're doing quarantine, they will allow you some flexibility. Say you can go few days after your quarantine. And in some cases, it depends on the local country as well. So it depends whether you're in Scotland, England, or Wales, things like that. They might choose the option to mail it to you. So what happened to my BRP was they mailed the BRP to me, so I don't need to go to the university or the post office to collect it. But I think it depends on the university on what their plans is when it's closer to September. I'm pretty sure they will let you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks, Jayin, for highlighting that. Because in the UK, as Jayin has mentioned, if you are going to Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland, they probably will have different requirements on quarantine. So perhaps you can find that out a couple of weeks before your intended travel. Yeah. Okay. I think here they are. Okay. This is a further question about the TB screening. If student is living in a different state, but because of the MCO interstate travel being restricted, I think in this case, perhaps you will need to reach out to the police to see if there's any approval for this kind of situation, because you really have a valid reason, so you can see whether you can get a special permission for interstate travel to do the TB screening. Okay, and here is another question about the parents' consent letter. Now, I assume this consent letter is for using the money. So there's really not any specific formats. Of course, they should state their name, passport numbers, and they should write to give you a very clear consent that they allow you for using that money for the purpose of paying your tuition fees and expenses. And they have to sign and date the letter as well. If it is for underage, under 18, then you need to make sure 4 points are covered. Applying for visa, allowing you to travel independently, to study and live independently in the UK. So these are the 4 points if it is for the purpose of underage, under 18 students. Now, here is another question about quarantine arrangement upon arrival. Now, as of now, the UK government is implementing a traffic light quarantine practice. So there are 3 lights, green, amber, and red. So it depends which country that you come from and transit from as well. As of now, Malaysia is still in the amber color. That means this is to England. If you are traveling to Scotland or different country of the UK, they probably may have a different requirements. Say, for example, to England, if it is still under amber, come direct from an amber country. You can do self-quarantine at your own accommodation, but you still need to do a test on the day 2 and day 8. And you are only out of quarantine if you get the negative results. Yeah, but of course, again, now it's only mid-May. Perhaps you can check for more details for a better confirmation prior to your departure. And here I have another question about the validity of visa. Don't worry, it is just a month. The reason for that is because they need you to travel within that month. And the moment you get your BRP, it will stay the entire duration. You can stay in the country as a student. And you don't have to renew visa because anyway, you got the BRP card. That's already proof how long you can stay there as a student. Now, I have a question is about the CAS. Now, CAS is an acronym for Confirmation of Acceptance of Studies. Now, this will be issued by the university that will sponsor your student visa. And you should only ask one university for this CAS. And the moment you get an unconditional offer, that university will either get in touch with you about the CAS, or you should approach the university to release the CAS as soon as you can. And last question I have here about, well, sorry, I think this is answered as well early. Sorry, one more popping up. It is about the TB screening. Well, you don't need to have any document from the university for that. You can just go to the clinic, yeah, and tell them that you need a TB screening for your student visa. They will give you a form to fill up, do a chest X-ray. The moment doctor approves that, you'll get a certificate. So that's all for now.
Great. Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And Davina just reminded us that MABECS have some letters for parents. So if you're not sure what some of these letters should look like, MABECS have sample ones that they can send to you. So reach out to MABECS. I have a question about a certificate of good conduct. How do you get hold of one?
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay. So from based on my knowledge, certificate of good conduct is only needed for healthcare students. So basically, medicine, dentistry, nursing. So what you can do is you can go to just go on Google search Malaysian Foreign Affairs Office. Then you go and apply for a certificate of good conduct there. There are some online forms to fill in, but it's quite straightforward. So when you finish filling up, they'll do a background check on you. So it'll take like between a few weeks to a month, depends on how many people are applying at the same time. And you will need to, when they'll send an email to tell you that, okay, so we have done the check and we are ready to issue you the certificate. So what you need to do by then is you need to go to the Putrajaya office and pay a good amount of money, I think it was 30 ringgit, and get a certificate. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so should we move on to some of the accommodation questions? There seems to be a lot related to quarantine and what happens and what care is available for students in accommodation when they have to quarantine. Tom, could you answer that?
Sure. So the PBSAs themselves, as I mentioned, they are smaller private buildings with dedicated team members in there. What that means is, unlike a typical university accommodation, which could be catering to thousands of students, more likely there's going to be about 10 members of staff to every kind of 100 students. And what that means is when the students are quarantining, if they need to do things like order food deliveries, the team will assist with that. They can help deliver breakfast in the morning. That's something that we do offer as part of that service. At this moment in time, Malaysians are allowed to quarantine in the PBSA, in their room itself. If there is a change to the red list, then it is possible that they may need to stay in state-sanctioned quarantine. And that, I'm not sure if anyone's asked, but at this moment in time, I can tell you, with the experience of my Indian students, they are having to spend, I think it's £1,700 to do 14 days of quarantine. And that is anyone that's on that red list. As we said, as of now, Malaysia is not on that list. They're on amber and seem to be going in the right direction. Hopefully they go towards green rather than red. But at this moment in time, yes, we can do the quarantine. We don't, unfortunately, help universities with accommodation, as in putting students into their accommodation, but we do help universities with their students to find private accommodation. Someone also asked about being able to stay in our rooms in first year. There is no restrictions. Some PBSAs may not accept kids who are 16, but for the most part, as long as there's a guardian available, which we can help you find, the PBSAs will allow the students to stay there, no matter if they're foundation, first year, all the way through to PhD level.
Megan has a good question about when you arrive and quarantine, what happens? Because obviously in Malaysia, we have these big buses that take people away. Tom, do you want to just explain how you get from the airport to your accommodation?
Well, yeah. I mean, it really depends on PBSA to PBSA, but they do all have local partners. It will change on city to city, but most of the PBSAs offer a pickup and delivery service already. Of course, that will be usually an additional cost, but usually the students are arriving in groups and they can arrange a bus, so the students will all be moving together. But when you actually apply to your building itself, I can let you know specifically each building, because we have so many different partners. Some of them have slightly different policies, but they will always make sure that you get to your room safely and sound. Sure.
Tom, if you don't mind, I'd just like to jump in and add on a bit.
Please do, yeah.
So for the quarantine arrangement, I think a more general picture is, let's say when you touch down in London and you want to go to Cardiff, for example. So from your journey from London to Cardiff, you are free to use public transport, or just or generally some universities will arrange transport for you. So what happened during my time was the Cardiff University, they did have a collection service in Heathrow. So what I did was we just got off the plane, wait for the bus from Cardiff. They sent us straight to Cardiff City Centre. Then from City Centre, we bought smaller buses that is sending us to our individual accommodation. So from the airport, they have like a more taken care of arrangement to send you all the way to your accommodation. And you don't need to worry about do you need to go on a government provided bus or anything. No. So what they mean by home quarantine when you arrive in UK is you need to make sure that you stay in your home without any valid reasons. If you can only go out for valid reasons. So valid reasons include traveling from the airport to your home. So those are allowed. You don't need to worry about those. Yep, sorry, Tom, back to you.
That's exactly right. And if there is any change, as we said, if it does become a red list scenario, each individual PBSA will be organising anything that is deemed necessary by the government. So for sure, we will make sure that you get to your room.
Yeah, can I just add that because UK, as Jayin has mentioned, it's comprises of 4 countries, so different country may implement slightly different in terms of the arrangement. So perhaps students, you may want to check for clearer information prior to your departure. Yeah, because England definitely will have slightly different practices than in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But up until the moment you get in that plane, we will have staff that can answer any of those questions for you. And as soon as you arrive in your destination, we will also be able to help you there too. So if you're ever stuck, we will be able to answer those questions, even right up to the last minute. Student getting wristbands. Jane, I think that might be a question for you about the wristbands.
Yeah. Who wants to tackle the question about do the students get any wristbands where quarantine needs to be removed at the end of quarantine, like we have in Malaysia?
Yeah, I don't mind answering that. I can't see the question, but I assume it's about the whole process of having the quarantine ban in your hand. So what happens in the UK is it's more of an honesty system. So they give you the trust to quarantine in your own home, and you should really go with the rules and not take any chances. So what happens is once you land, they won't really tell you you need to quarantine or not. Obviously, if you come from a red list country, you might go to a different counter and they will split you into buses. But if you're on an amber list or a green list country, they will just let you go from the customs as usual. Then from there, it's on your own honesty to quarantine in your own home. To the best of my knowledge, I think England, they will send out home test kits for you. So when you arrive on the UK, you need to fill up a passenger locator form. So basically on that, you need to write down your personal details, your term time accommodation, and your phone number, things like that. So once it's like the second day, they'll mail you a package of a home testing kit. So you need to do the home testing. I think it's a PCR swab test, and then mail it back to them, and they'll process it. That's for the second day and the 8th day. Then after that, if you're not positive for anything, you are free to go around. Not to say you should, but you can go out after your quarantine period finish after 10 days.
Yep, sorry, can I just give an update to Jayin's reply just now? For the passenger locator form, as of now, it has to be completed 48 hours prior to the departure. Yeah.
Okay, that's an important piece of information, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think,
So, I mean, I think that kind of...
sorry, yeah, so I just want to add on. So by the time it's closer for you to travel to the UK, it's always good to keep in touch with a few organizations. So MABECS is definitely one. You keep in touch with Casita. And I think the most helpful one or most easiest to contact is the Malaysian Society in your own university. So let's say if you're in a Cardiff, if you're studying in Cardiff, get in contact with Cardiff's Malaysian Society. They will provide a lot of information and they'll try to take care of your transition from the airport to your accommodation. But they'll generally try to help you settle in.
Okay, great, Michael, because I was just about to say the exact same comment there. So I think, you know, what's really come out is that these regulations are changing all the time. And I think this year more than ever, it's important that students really go through MABECS, because if you get your documentation wrong or you do slip up somewhere, you will get turned away at the airport or you will get your visa turned down. So more than ever, make sure you through MABECS, you follow everything absolutely, you know, dot the I's and cross the T's. And, you know, as Jayin said, forever you have great advice for you, the Malaysian societies as well. But in terms of actual procedures or what you should be doing for visas and COVID, I think, you know, MABECS is a great organization to ask. In terms of when you get there, definitely those Malaysian organizations will be a really, really useful help for you, great resource for you. So yeah, there's been a couple of questions about the slides. So the slides and the audio, everything's going to go on our YouTube channel. Hopefully that will be up there tomorrow. So please do go back and look at them. And if we still have some students in webinar now, I will email this out to all of you guys, and then you can forward it to your parents as well, because I think you need the audio that goes with the slides rather than the slides, right? It's not that simple. And if you have any questions, you will see on all the slides the contact details from all of our speakers, so please do contact them. Or of course, if you have any of the questions you can't find answers, come and ask either myself or Miss Wendy or anybody in the sixth form team. So I hope it's been really useful. It's a really exciting time for you guys, but this will be a stressful part of it. Do not leave things to the last minute. Be organized. And hopefully this is just the start of you being informed. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Thank you again to Davina and her team at MABECS for everything that you do for our students. Thank you to Carho for giving up your evening for us. Thank you to Tom. I guess you're in England, Tom, so
Bangkok.
In England, Bangkok, so you're at the same time, so that's fine. And thank you. Great to see you again. Choi Gajing, great to see you. And thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Emma, just a quick update before I forget. Sorry, everyone, just a quick update. Just now, Jayin has touched about the Certificate of Good Conduct for students doing healthcare courses. I think in addition to that, anyone that will do a course that will have contact to the public there, for example, such as teaching, social work, even psychology, it is best to get the Certificate of Good Conduct because you will have a contact to the public. So it's good to get it in hand before you go to the UK. Right, thank you.
Useful tip, yeah, get it done now while you're here and it's easier. Yeah, good tip, yeah. All right, thank you everybody, good night, and I hope that webinar has been useful. Thank you to our speakers.
Thanks so much for organising, Emma. Take care, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Emma. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.